long time no see. It's been a while. I kind of got out of my routine and things slipped through the cracks. So I am back with a reading wrap-up video. I'm a little rusty. I had so many grand plans for my summer break and all of the books that I was going to read and all of the videos that I was going to be able to make while I was off of work. And now here we are, and I'm a week and a half back into the school year, and clearly none of those plans worked out for me. So I'm back on a routine and the structure feels good. So I'm hoping once the chaos of the start of the school year calms down, I will be able to get back onto a regular routine with videos and content. But it is August, and I read a few books in July, and let's talk about them. The first one that I read was Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez, finishing up the Part of Your World series, which I loved. This was amazing. I think that my favorite out of the entire series is still Yours Truly, which I attribute to the reading order that I followed like I had a plan. No, I read Yours Truly not knowing that it was part of a series that had a book before it. So then I went back to read Part of Your World, and now here I am with finishing up the last one in the series. I do wish that I had read them in order. However, it wasn't necessary, and I enjoyed all of them. I loved them all. These are tough to beat. Continuing on with my finishing up a series, I read Actor Age Eve Brown to wrap up the Brown Sisters series, and this was great. Another one that I really loved. I think out of the three, the storyline on this one hit a lot closer to home than any of the others. So a lot of the characters' experiences really resonated with me on a more meaningful level and was a bit more impactful. Again, another knockout series. Every book in the trilogy, fantastic. I love the way that Talia Hibbert addresses and incorporates elements of mental health, physical health, and balances it all out with killer banter and quick wit. One of my audio reads this month was Yellowface by R.F. Kuang. This has been sitting on my shelf for a long time, probably about a year at this point, and just haven't gravitated toward it on the shelf, and it came up on Libby, so I needed an audio read, and I thought it was great. It was a really interesting experience to read a book where I so immensely disliked the main character. She's awful. She's just awful. And the entire premise is so unique. So this was a really gripping read from start to finish. A bit heavy at certain parts, and I'm sure that there's a lot of nuance and deeper layers that I'm missing because it was an audio read. From an entertainment perspective, this was gripping, interesting. I hated the main character. I thought she was awful, which kind of kept me turning the page because I wanted to see her get what was coming to her. And I'm sure that there is a lot of depth and nuance that I'm not diving into. First of all, I listen to it on audio and I don't process things as... The books that I listen to on audio don't stick with me as strongly as the books that I read in print. So it will be interesting to go back later on and do a reread with the print version and see what else I can pick out from my initial read when I was reading just for entertainment purposes. I also read The Women by Kristin, and this was fantastic. I was not expecting to enjoy this as much as I did. I'm typically not a fan of historical fiction. However, I teach, for those of you who don't know, I teach high school English, and one of the books that I read with my juniors is The Things They Carried by Tim O'Brien, which is a Vietnam War novel. So I thought it would be neat if I could incorporate some of this book with that unit. So I wanted to read it while I was on break for summer, and I'm so glad I did. It was not what I was expecting at all. And I loved that it addressed the war's impact on our main character in more than one way. In the first part, seeing her in Vietnam working to establish herself as a nurse, working to learn the ropes, you know, dealing with the adrenaline, dealing with the stress of the, you know, attacks and the grief that comes with getting to know somebody who then gets severely injured or dies in combat, and then having to grapple with all of that while still going on to do your job in a high adrenaline situation and flawlessly. So getting that glimpse into the war zone, which you don't really get in the things they carried. The things they carried focuses more on the power of reflection and the power of storytelling, and so we do get snippets and we see vignettes of different events and involving members of the platoon. However, they're quick little flashes, and the women gives an extended and detailed look at what it was like. And then in the second part, the follow-up, the aftermath, when she comes home from the war and having to deal with her family's disappointment and having to adjust to life as a civilian, and you know, still dealing with all of the pain and mistreatment and injustice that Vietnam War vets faced, and the added layer of being a female war vet at a time when many people, combat soldiers included, didn't believe that women were there. And so trying to find resources at the VA or through the VA, I mean, from what I've heard, for veterans is hard enough as is, but at that time for women was impossible. And having to grapple with nobody fully understanding where she's coming from, why she did what she did in going to Vietnam, and the choices that she made and the paths that she took afterward in an attempt to kind of put her life back together. It was beautifully written, had very complex character development in many characters, not just our main character, and we really see the growth that these characters achieve through their path. So yeah, surprising but a beautiful read. I've heard wonderful things about Kristin Hanna. This is the first I've read of hers, so I was very, very pleased, and I am looking forward to reading more from her backlist. And finally, I read Appetite for Innocence from Lucinda Berry, and this was dark. I love a dark read. This was a little tough to swallow. This was not my favorite of Lucinda Berry's for a couple of reasons. I know what I'm getting into with a Lucinda Berry book. I know that she can go very dark with her themes, which this one definitely was. Some of it was a little hard to stomach and might have been a little too dark for me. I might have found my limit, but this is one of her earlier books, written in 2017, I believe. And so the writing style's just not quite as fleshed out as it is now. Although I don't know if I could handle reading this book if she wrote it now, after having written for several years and honed her craft. If she wrote that book now, I don't think I would have been able to stomach it. The earlier writing style, I think, does work for me in this instance, because some of the depictions of the things that this man did were difficult to swallow for sure. But I can cross that one off my list, and it's another one down on Lucinda Berry's backlist. For my upcoming reads this month, I know it's still summer, like we're still in the thick of a heat wave, but something about being back in school makes it feel like I need to start prepping for fall. This summer, all I really wanted to read were kind of light, summery, beachy reads for the most part. I know I did have some, I say that now after having just explained my thoughts on 3 kind of more serious reads, but that is what I was gravitating toward. Now that the school year is in full swing, I do find myself gravitating more toward fall-ish books. So I started The God of the Woods last month and just couldn't get back to it, so I'm gonna finish that up. I'm only, let's see, okay, I'm only 8 pages in, so you know, let's just pretend like I didn't actually start this, because I'm gonna have to go back and reread those 8 pages for sure. But I'm getting kind of like a late summer, early fall kind of like camping vibes. So I think this one will be a good one. And I'm also looking forward to reading This Girl's a Killer by Emma C. Wells. I was lucky enough to get an advanced copy of this book that's coming out on September 10th. And it's very girl boss serial killer vibes. The synopsis reads, meet Cordelia Black. Cordelia loves exactly 3 things. Her chosen family, composed of her best friend Diane and her goddaughter, her hairdresser, worth every penny plus tip, and killing bad men. By day, she's a successful pharmaceutical rep with a pristine reputation and a designer wardrobe. By night, she's culling South Louisiana of unscrupulous men, monsters who always seem to evade justice until they meet her. It's a complicated yet fulfilling life that requires complete and total control at all times. But when the evening news starts throwing around the word serial killer, pressure heightens for her in the South, and it's only exacerbated when Diane starts dating a man Cordelia isn't sure is a good person. Someone who might unravel everything Cordelia has worked for. Soon, Cordelia's world spirals and she loses her grip on those tightly held threads that keep her safe. So far, it's got an average, almost 4-star rating, and I love the cover. So I'm really looking forward to diving into this one. There's the full graphics. So that's where I am. That's what I read in July. That's what I'm planning on reading in August, and I'm sure I'll toss a couple others in there as well. I'm not going to put too much pressure on myself with the first month of school, but it is important for me to take the time to read so I can unwind and de-stress. So we'll see what this month brings. I hope that you've had a lovely summer and that whatever you're reading, you are loving. I'd love to hear what you're reading down below, so if you could let me know in the comments. With that being said, I will see you in the next one. Until then, happy reading, friends.